Okay, this is my discussion on designing effective online instruction. And I will say that the TED Talk was very informative. It was interesting to listen to her perspective from 1998, thinking about online courses and how different they are today than they were back then. But I think that a lot of her points were quite salient. When you plan a lesson plan to face a class, you are planning for a week or 2 weeks, and you usually have a pacing guide to go through for the year. But in an online course, it's different because the student themselves has a chance to go back and remediate or even move forward if they want to take a project forward and do it ahead of time. And I know when I teach class, students will come to me. It makes me a little crazy. They're like, I'm not going to be here on Friday. What are y'all doing? And I don't know what we're doing on Friday specifically because I don't know where we'll be on Friday, which an online class is different than that. An online class, if Friday comes and you don't understand what's going on, I need to answer your questions and you need to move on. But you may know what's going on, and I think that's where having the rest of the course open online is very important. I think students who want to work ahead, especially for me as a professional, I'm working 60 hours a week, and I want to make, if I have time to get ahead on a weekend, or like I just finished a break and I have a time to get ahead, then I want to go ahead and do that. I want to go ahead and get ahead in my course for when something happens, or maybe I have a wedding to go to, or maybe I know that another class I have a group project due. So I think that teaching online classes effectively, you have to remember that your student body, at least at this level, has a lot of other things going on. And unlike a class in K 12, where this is the student's job, their student's job is to take the class. So I think that's one thing in an online class is there has to be room for students to move ahead, which means the course needs to be complete and open to the students from day one. And honestly, that's one of my biggest gripes with some professors in online classes is they keep things closed. And so when I have some time, or maybe an assignment doesn't take me as long in another class, I get frustrated because I can't move forward. And like this semester, I'm taking 3 classes. So juggling those three and making sure that I've got everything done. Um, when I go into a class and I'm like, okay, I'm a week ahead on these 2 classes and I want to move forward and I can't, that's frustrating. So I think the other thing it makes me think as a classroom teacher is if a student is having to remediate or having to figure something out, that there are multiple resources there, not just one way to see the teaching. So they can go back and go, okay, I really didn't understand that Khan Academy video, but I do understand this step-by-step tutorial in Microsoft. So it did make me think about things like that when I'm creating a course. I want to camp out a moment on being present and providing feedback and answering questions. I think for me, a professor is present when I get a response within 24 to 48 hours. And I've had professors, I've had professors who's had loved ones in car accidents, and, they always seem to let you know. They're like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't be online, or somebody else is going to be online, like she talked about, as somebody who can pinch hit for you when you can't. But I think the most frustrating thing for me as an adult student is if I read your directions and I don't understand. I don't need you to retype the directions for me. I need you to go, okay, what are you asking? What don't you understand? And have that being present. And I think there's a temptation for online teachers, and I think too at the university level there's that distance between teachers and students as well. But online, it's even this bigger chasm of, I'll ask you a question. Like right now, I've asked a professor in another course a question, and it's been 3 days, and I have heard nothing. The assignment's due tomorrow. And so that being present in a course, being accessible, I like what she talked about having your phone or having your laptop right there, to answer a question, respecting the fact that I'm a professional, I have a family, I have a full time job, I have a commute to my full time job. And so if I'm asking a question and I have this window of time to work on the course, then it needs to be respected. And so, as an online educator, I think that's different than a classroom teacher. As a classroom teacher, kids ask you in class, or they swing by after class, or they shoot you an email. And I mean, at our schools, the rule is you get an email from a kid or a parent, it's answered within 24 hours, unless you're sick or lying in the hospital. And even, within the weekend, 48 hours before they come back to class on Monday, they need an answer. So, unless power's out or there's been a snowstorm, you can't get to your online work, then I think that being present is really important. I think that overall, effective online courses also apply to your professional practice. I will say, for the most part, my courses at the University of West Georgia have done this. I've been able to take things that I can use in class or in my practice and go ahead and use it as projects for my West Georgia classes, which I appreciate a great deal. I think my biggest complaint about that would be summer courses. I have taken summer courses and I've looked at the pacing in those classes, and we're talking about 8 to 10 weeks in the summer working on a class versus 18 weeks in a normal semester. And those are not modified to fit a summer schedule. And I find that very frustrating. And if I felt like every single assignment in a class was absolutely essential, then I would not feel bad about it. But I think a lot of times there's fluff. There's, basically not wanting to adjust the course to the reality that we're talking about a much shorter time span to do the class. And so I think effective online courses have to fit the audience and the time they're taking it. And if I'm taking a summer class, then I want to be able to do that and not feel like I'm spending every day of my summer for 10 hours a day at my computer, because the class is really written for an 18-week class. And that can be done. I mean, I'm thinking of one class where, you know, basically each assignment I felt like was very valid, but the number of citations and entries that had to be put per unit seemed excessive. It was 5 per unit, and it could have easily been 3. So, things like that I want to think about in online classes is that, think about the time that students have to take the class, especially in professional classes where it's summertime and and a lot of teachers work during the summer, or they do other work to build up their salaries for the year. So, but I think the biggest difference to me overall in online classes is that scaffolding aspect, the ability to make sure that there's remediation, there's time, there's a appropriate amount of time, that assignments are essential in the class and that are adaptive to different time frames in the class, as well as adaptive to different levels of ability in the class. So, but I agree with her that I think that online education is very different than classroom education, and that connection to your students is not an option. You have to be able to connect with them just like a good classroom teacher if you're going to be an effective online educator. And considering that the EDS that I'm working on right now includes an online certification, that's good for me to think about is, if I'm going to work with an online course platform, I'm going to be responsible for the same emotional and verbal connection with my students that I would if I were seeing them every day, and have to work even a little harder at that. And also to, be inviting, to make myself verbally accessible in emails, to ask questions and not feel like I'm being troubled by your question. So effective online courses, I think they have those they have those components where they're moduled out, the course comes ready, students can work at their own pace, they're scaffolded with lots of support, and overall the instructor is accessible just like the instructor would be accessible in a physical class.